Hey there, and welcome to the first day of the 30-day work-life balance challenge of Why Not 3. I'm so happy that you've joined me. Yesterday we had the day 0, but today we're actually going into it. We're actually going to start a 30-day challenge. I can't believe it myself because it's a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it because you'll be with me through every journey, every part. I'll be giving you so much content, almost everything that I've learned so far in how to balance a life if you're an entrepreneur or a young professional. And we've had these principles, and you will see this this week actually, how serial entrepreneurs that have been 20 plus years in the business, how online marketers that are doing business for a while now have been applying these principles that I've shared also on the TEDx stage, and have changed the way they operate their business and their lives. And without further ado, we're here on the PowerPoint once again. Let's fly into the content and not waste too much time. So week 1, like I said before, is all about mindsets. And we're going to be covering a lot of consistency mindsets, Green River mindsets, like I said before from one of my mentors. We'll be covering work-life balance mindsets that are necessary to have in order to really appreciate a work-life balance and understand that is actually possible. But the main thing that I want to share with you today is actually the ultimate meta level formula that we use in Why Not 3. This formula is literally the reason I could start Why Not 3. I can maintain everything that I have, and that I've been able to shortcut so much personal development journeys along the way. This is literally the shortcut that I used. And it's the answer to how I define life. And that's why I call it the meta level formula. So you might have seen it around in our blog posts or in our emails. And here it is actually. Our definition of life and how I define life is actually health, wealth, and relationships. That's it. We keep it as simple as possible because I tend to forget a lot. So if I don't remember my own formulas, then I'm not going to keep them for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. And now thankfully it's been 8 years that I've been doing this, and I've been just applying it consistently, because once you hear it once, health, wealth, and relationships, you kind of remember it forever. And where does it come from? So there's a booklet by Kenton Knepper called Completely Cold, and it was initially done for cold reading. So cold reading is the art of looking at someone and being able to tell with 80% accuracy what that person is like. So obviously it's not scientific or anything. It's a very fun art to master. It's a little bit like mentalism, if you know the show. And at the time when I was learning how to cold read, how to pick up, I was going through the Center for Body Language and Microexpressions training course to become a certified trainer. And I was learning all these skills to pick up on people and how to read them. And this actually predicted pretty much with 80% accuracy whatever I could say to any person. And the way this model worked is that that was the whole premises of it. Any and every problem you may have falls into one of those 3 categories. But every category, so every area of life, health, wealth, and relationships, has an internal and an external component. And that is very important, and I dive deeper into this in our 10-week program that I launch once a year. But I dive deeper into exactly how you can apply it. We only have so much time, so I'll share what I can share with you. So you have health, wealth, and relationships, internal and external. Always remember that. And at the time, it was very useful for me when cold reading people. Some person would pop up a problem, and I'd be like, oh, that's according to health, so I can go deeper into health. Oh, that's according to wealth, and so on and so on. The number one thing that you need to remember is that it's all connected. Whatever you do, it's all connected. If your health starts to suffer, your confidence might suffer too, which is internal relationships. And if your confidence starts to suffer, your external relationships, so maybe your partner, might start suffering too. And the same goes for your wealth. If your confidence is suffering, maybe now you're performing less in a job. So everything is connected. It's very important. And that is actually the key message that I shared on the TEDx stage. So health, wealth, and relationships, that's the Mita formula. And so I was learning how to read people. And then one day, and and then one day what happened was I was sitting in my room, and I had this huge chalkboard, and in the corner I wrote everything that I'd learned of Essence down on this chalkboard. And in the corner you had health, wealth, and relationships in really small. I didn't even write the words. It was just like HWR, because I knew I would remember it. I was just looking at it, and at the time I just kind of figured out finally and become a little bit more confident in relationships, how to maintain relationships. I had started from zero with no friends, no family to back me up, and kind of literally starting from zero. And I was looking and just figured it out, and had just gotten a job in sales, and I knew that I'd figured it out because my numbers were telling me that I actually had figured out how to talk to people. And I was looking at health, wealth, and relationships, and I was at the time thinking, what can I develop more? I just gotten hooked pretty much to personal development. I had read a couple of books, I had spoken to a couple of mentors, and suddenly 6 months, 8 months later, I was performing really well and had actual friends around me and people that loved me. And I wanted to do more, and I was still learning in relationships, of course, but the basics were covered. And I was still suffering in other areas, so I was thinking, what else to do? And so suddenly I looked at the top of the corner of the chalkboard, and I was like, wait a second, I just figured out relationships. What about wealth and health? So automatically somehow I stumbled on a blog from Dave Asprey, Bulletproof Diet, and I realized that I was already starting to somehow learn about health. So I started using this model in such a way that it would systematize my personal development. And in some way, because I was now focusing on areas, it would shortcut, and I would save so much time just by having a definition of life, kind of. So suddenly I was doing health, and it took me, I think, a year or two to really start figuring out how health worked. And the number one key that really helped me with that, and we're going to be covering that in week 3, trackers and stuff like that, but I started tracking by doing blood analysis. It was in the beginning every month, and then every 3 months, as I started seeing that the results were resonating a lot with what Dave Asprey was putting out. Here and there it deviated, so you always have to experiment and track on yourself. But most of the results were the same as Tim Ferriss, and I had other biohacker friends that we were sharing results and everything. So here I was going now into health, and then going and shortcutting pretty much there, asking mentors, reading the right books, cutting through all the bull pretty much, and tracking on myself to realize what is working and what is not. Trying out so many diets in the end. And the reason I never maintained any of the diets is because I love to eat. So if a diet restricts the amount that I can eat, it's really hard to keep me on it. The reason I like the Bulletproof Diet is because I can just eat as much as I want and still maintain my weight. So unless I deviate from the diet, of course. But we're going a little bit sidetracked. So here I am, health, wealth, and relationships. Little me, just figuring out a little bit of life, or relationships, just kind of like the basics, the foundation is there. Now going into health. And from there, I actually went on figuring out kind of the biohacking principles of that. My cholesterol, which was usually, so you have HDL and LDL, and so the HDL and the LDL, so both of them are cholesterols. It's one number, one cholesterol. But when you look at your blood analysis, you have 2 of them. And one of them is really bad, and the other one is really good. So my bad cholesterol was usually very high, just above average, and my good cholesterol was, I think, just about average. So what is cholesterol? Cholesterol is kind of like the army of your immune system. It's the ammunition. So if your good cholesterol is good, your immune system has better weapons to fight. So obviously I wasn't doing really well. Actually, I wasn't doing at all well, because I was called up at the time I was studying, I was called up by the medical doctor, and they looked over my results, and they were actually concerned over why my results were so bad at my age. And so I started then the Bulletproof diet, and literally I think a month later or a couple of weeks later, I did the same result, because they asked me to do another blood analysis. I really hated needles at the time. And what happened was my bad cholesterol suddenly became half of the average, which never had happened before. And then my good cholesterol suddenly was literally double of the average, which meant that I was double as healthy as, well, it doesn't mean that specifically, but suddenly I was way more healthy than before. And since I've been on the diet, I've actually never deviated that much. Sometimes it triples the average, but most of the time when I start deviating from the diet and started eating a snack or two somewhere, then it's just above average, my good cholesterol. But my low cholesterol seems to stay below the average, which is really, really good. So since then, I've been doing that health, biohacking and stuff, and then suddenly I was realizing that I needed to move on. So now I had my formula: health, wealth, and relationships. Relationships and health were suddenly kind of figured out. So I went into, now I knew I needed to figure out wealth, because that's what my formula is all about, right? So wealth. And that's when I stumbled on a blog by a funny little Australian guy who's now really, really big. So his name is Timothy Mark. He has his own 30-day challenge where you can actually learn a lot. So most of the stuff will be actually briefly covered. So if you follow his 30-day challenge, that alone will already get your wealth kicking and starting. But it's only one aspect out of all three areas, and as I said, there's internal and external, so it's actually only one area out of the 6 components: internal health, so that internal health, external health, and that one is specifically then external wealth. He teaches you pretty much how to set up a business that you can that funds a life of freedom, fun, and adventure. That's how he says it, and it's true, because he teaches you some business automation tips, that once you scale those tips up and you start working with the multinationals, you start realizing how the businesses are actually run on such a high level. So that is really briefly about health, wealth, and relationships. In the mastermind, I go really deep into it, because that alone has saved me so much time. And let's move on to the next thing that we're going to be covering, and that is a little story, I guess, about how I literally just scaled my company. I wanted to do this 30-day challenge starting on the 1st of September, but that was actually the day that I did my TEDx speech and moved, because we literally scaled the company from Belgium, including the Belgian market, to also the Dutch market. And that alone administratively is a big deal, and that's why I postponed this one to the 1st of October, which gave me the opportunity as well to learn from my mentor on how he did the 30-day challenge, so that I can learn from his mistakes and hopefully not apply them here. But I did just scale my company, and what does this mean for you? It means that I'm literally starting from not absolute zero, because we do have some clients here, but it means that we're starting from pretty much zero with building up a new network, building up the new connections, a new crew, and so on. So we're also literally just started out with a new office here and so on. So you might actually see us, I'll put up some videos on how I sit in the office, how it looks like, and what the benefits are of my office. And one of the stories I actually want to share with you, as we're going to go through the 30 days, I'm going to take you to the events that I network on, to the projects that I'm on, so you can literally see what I'm doing in the first month that I'm in a new country and scaling and trying to become again as big as we were in Belgium, but hopefully bigger, because that's the whole point of scaling. So as I go along, you'd be able to use those principles and do what I do to scale your company. Or if you're starting from zero and you don't have anything, you can literally apply what I'm doing and start your own thing, and see how much I put effort into it to actually get it going, so that there's no kind of illusions on how hard it is, because it's definitely not easy, whatever people tell you. But it's just the power of consistency. Do a little bit every day, and then at one point you're just gonna have this empire. And that's kind of what I heard from my mentors, and I've been doing a little bit every day. To some people, I have a really big company. To me, we're still growing, and we're still looking up to our clients and some of the people that we work with, and some of my mentors, and trying to scale up there. But a little story that I shared in our mastermind group the other day on Facebook Live is about having an office. So for I think 2 years with my main company, I didn't have an office. And what I did is literally follow the advice of one of my mentors, which is I would meet up in really luxurious hotels, like 5-star hotels. There's a Marriott in Rotterdam, which is right across the Central Station. So I literally would go to the Marriott and meet up with some people, get a drink, which is like €2 or whatever, and would meet up with a client. And being in a luxurious hotel gives you the vibe of luxury. So when you're putting out numbers like 10,000, 20,000, it doesn't seem that big. If I was in a McDonald's and I would ask 10,000 or 20,000, it's just not gonna work. So I use that hack, especially if I travel. I just go to hotels and I meet in hotels instead of on the street or in a McDonald's or something like that. So I still use that hack. And I didn't want to get an office for the longest time, just because I don't want to have fixed costs that there's no reason for them to be paid. And then I got an office about beginning this year somewhere. We got an office in the center of Rotterdam, which is in the Netherlands. And suddenly, you could see the vibe kind of changes in a good way. So the clients that would come, I would first of all book more meetings, because I'd be in the office and I could handle more meetings. On top of that, we also had a secretary that was super friendly. So when people would come to the office, they would first come to the reception, and the reception would refer to me, which already changes the vibe completely when you're negotiating. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're here on the Work-Life Balance Challenge and you're still considering getting an office or not, I hope this little story, I'm not going to go too deep into it because some of us already have offices. So definitely get an office, it's worth it. For the traveling entrepreneurs among us that have an online business just like me on the laptop, I would advise to get something like, I think Regus, it's called Regus, has an international platform of offices, and they're all in the center. And you can literally get one ticket or something like that you pay monthly, and you can go visit all of their offices all over the world. So definitely worth checking out that part, and that way you can also meet in the offices and create that vibe that makes it more professional as well. I never thought it would be more professional. Meeting in hotels seemed to work for me. Eventually you just sit down and you sell like you sell normally, right? But there is a different vibe. It's you can do more, and you also have kind of in your mind you want to do more because you're paying, so you're invested, right? But that's a little story about how here scaling my company can benefit you, because you'd be along with me in the first month, and a little office story in case you're a traveling entrepreneur. Now let's go deeper. And yeah, I actually kind of covered this already with the health, wealth, and relationships, the meta level, the definition of life, and how I pretty much define my life so that I can shortcut most of my personal development. And yeah, so the last thing, I think, let me check. Yeah, the last thing is a story of discovery. So the way I discovered Health, Wealth, and Relationships is shared, but the way I discovered Why Not 3, I covered kind of shortly, maybe yesterday, definitely in the podcast, but I wanna share this with you here as well. So about now, it's a little bit more than a year ago, I was at a conference in Germany, and they just asked me to give a workshop on work-life balance. And at the time I had a co-facilitator, so that's like a speaker, but they do less. They just build the sessions and then create a workshop. So I had a co-facilitator, and we had to give a training on work-life balance. I was invited to speak on other topics there, and I had my own group where we were giving workshops the whole time. And this was kind of an external workshop that was just empty, and we did it. And at the time, I was sitting there, and we kind of talked about what we should talk about, and we really didn't, especially back then, I was just setting up all of my systems in my company. So work-life balance to me seemed, I mean, there was a point to it, of course, because you have to maintain stress levels and not burn out, because I was burning out all the time back then. And but it just, I didn't understand why we needed to give a session on work-life balance. They're usually so fluffy, not practical, you can't do anything with it. A session on time management I would understand, but work-life balance, not really. But anyways, at the time, we were looking over what should we pretty much put in there. And I realized that in the last 8 years now, all of my mentors were giving me subtle hints and little like ideas and mindsets that I'm going to share this week with you on how to actually have a work-life balance so that you can actually have more productivity. And what I say in Why Not 3, achieve a peak performance. And I used 3 principles, just 3 principles. It was a 90-minute workshop, so every principle had 30 minutes. And I thought that would cover pretty much most of the things that I did in my last 8 years, and how I started my company, how I pretty much automated my company, and so on. And it had nothing to do with companies. At the time, it was literally just, I was invited for a student organization to speak, so it was all young professionals that were studying, working, it was like they were doing a lot. And so we started the kind of workshop, and the first 10 minutes we do expectation setting, and the things that started popping up were unreal. And like, you literally couldn't imagine the things that would pop up. And at one point I literally had to say to people, you realize this is a 90-minute workshop. We can't cover things like a definition of life. But funnily enough, Health, Wealth, and Relationships was already discovered at that point. So I was gonna share it, I knew that. And but yeah, I wanted to kind of calm them down and set the expectations a little bit lower. But it still kept coming, and I started realizing that the problem was really big. So we did the workshop. I deviated here and there and put some extra tips in there according to the expectations. And at the end, everything was answered. And even more at the end, when I finished, I delivered at that point maybe 15 plus conferences. And conferences means that these are usually 40-50 hours of workshops, and I would give most of those workshops with a co-speaker or not. And so it's like 4 or 5 days each conference. And suddenly here I am for the first time, and yes, I did inspire people before, but if I didn't have that workshop, I would have never known what inspired means. And these people, it seemed to me at least, for the first time kind of had hope. And most of the testimonials that we actually have, and we have like 13 plus the new ones, so maybe 15, 16 that we have right now. But most of the testimonials that we have are those original people in the first workshop. Since then, we've delivered the workshop in 6 countries. So I had the privilege to travel around and speak on really cool conferences. And yeah, so something was triggered, and I realized it was a big problem. I realized it even more when I came back, and I told you I was burning out at the time a lot, and I thought it was normal. And I had a friend who was a really high achiever, and she would get sick, and she didn't know, but I would get sick a month later. And then this would happen for like a couple of months between us, but I wouldn't tell her. And then at one point I came back from that conference, and she ended up in the hospital. So now I knew, oh, damn, if she's going in the hospital now, I could potentially end up in the hospital in 1 month. And funnily enough, it's not even funny, but like a week later, at one point, which was the lowest point that I had, is the stress got so much over me that I couldn't turn my hand like that. It seemed to be blocked. I could move it till here, and then I couldn't turn it anymore. And so I would take a 20-minute breaks because I was working, and I would take a 20-minute break, chat with my girlfriend, and suddenly I could move. And then the first thought that I had was, oh, I can move, let's do more work. And I would do this 3 times until I realized, oh, I think this is stress related. So at that point, it was just the final straw. And even though I knew most of the principles, I wasn't applying them consistently. And I knew the principles, and sometimes I applied them. That's why I could grow the business that I have and combine it with everything that I was doing at the time. But I wasn't using them properly. And so at that point, my lowest point, I just realized I needed to innovate more. I needed to create some kind of principles that I would keep, even though my memory is short, and things that I would remember once, that I would see once and remember forever. And I started innovating, creating new systems, and we skip now a year forwards, but you see me here, I think I'm doing even more than before, and I'm more fulfilled and happy than ever. As I say in my community, it's all about maintaining the journey. It's partially based on what Aristoteles used to say, the ultimate eudaimonia is an activity. So you want to maintain that activity for as long as you can. And if you don't, then suddenly it becomes out of balance and you don't become happy anymore. So maybe on one day when shit hits the fan, I couldn't be happy that day, but because most of my life, most of the foundation and basics are covered, I'm actually quite fulfilled, and I can only grow better. Of course, I can go lower as well, but as long as I have my trackers and I'm consistent enough, then it's fine, right? But my goal for you is to also get on the path so that the foundation for you is covered and you can move on and grow bigger from there. And I'll be referring you to my mentors, to books that I've read and applied, and things that I've discovered so that you can grow there as well, and hopefully even more than me. So that's actually how Why Not 3 partially was born. So I came back from that conference, I had that low point, and I realized that at the time I also wanted to create a little pamphlet and output for the delegates because they were so impacted. And after that low point, I realized it needs to be something more. And I started writing this pamphlet, and it kind of became 10, 20 pages. 20 pages became 40 pages, then 40 pages became 60, 70, 80. And at one point it just became 120, 130 pages, and we realized that this became a book. So we started finding publishers, and thanks to the main company that I have, I was starting to get connected with companies like TEDx, and you notice people that have published books there and so on. And actually one of the people I met was a publisher, and so he gave me a lot of tips. And since then there's been a couple of publishers that we talked about, and we chose eventually one publisher. And a real book is going to come out, Kindle as well, but a real physical book. Selfishly enough, I want that book because every Sunday I do a silent day, which is tomorrow, and I'll be covering what a silent day is exactly in more detail. But yeah, we used that book, and we have that book, and as I was writing it, I realized that actually a friend of mine told me that maybe I should do something more, because by the time the book is going to get published, it's going to be a couple of months later, even though we're a year later now, so it's taking a bit longer than expected. But we started to build something more. So we tried to get a blog up, we tried to get some videos up, and so on. And so far the reaction has been good. People are actually getting helped. We even got at the point where some people wanted to have coaching. So here and there, I started doing coaching, and then one of my mentors actually told me that I should be focusing on my main company. So I am focusing on my main company, and here and there when I have some free time, I shoot these videos for you. Do this the 30-day challenge, which kind of gives me some relaxation and a sense that I give back as well. That's why I do the Why Not 3 30-day challenge. And it gives me a closer connection with you so that I can literally answer your question and help you where I can help you. But enough of me and the company and everything that has happened so far. I've given you a little bit of a backstory. Hope you liked it. And tomorrow, what we're going to be covering is a little bit a sense of everything I talked about just now, which is the proof. Does it really work? Are there actually people that are being coached, or am I just talking a lot? Are these testimonials real? Can you show them to me? So tomorrow we're going to be covering all of that and showing you that yes, a work-life balance is possible while having several companies, which I do, and having a proper relationship. It's all possible. And tomorrow we'll be covering more in details. Tomorrow is a proof day. And so far, so we have the Facebook group. If you're still not there, go there, just sign up. It's not even sign up. You just go to the group and ask for permission to enter. I'll put you in. You can ask any question in the group. We'll be covering them in the videos. And I hope you enjoy everything so far. If there are any questions, let me know. If you aren't subscribed yet to the emails, subscribe to the emails, because that's where you get a lot of the output, a lot of little secrets as well, and you get a warning sign when the new video is popped up. So definitely go there. The description is down below. It's whynot3.com/30-day-challenge. So make sure to check it out. And I hope to see you tomorrow for the day of proof, where we're going to be checking out more in detail how you can achieve a proper work-life balance, where you can achieve peak performance. See you tomorrow.